Hello, and welcome to another Saugatuck Scribes interview. I'm Jennifer Keller, and this is for the Westport Library. This Westport Library series highlights Westport authors and their newest books. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Michael Krysiuk, Julia Bobkoff, and Carol Dannhauser, who will be discussing Mike's memoir, The Big One. All three of these writers have amazing backgrounds. First up, Mike grew up poor and worked at Town Hall for nearly 25 years. He's done stand-up comedy, lectured on his story, and performed his original songs in local venues. His story was the subject of a one-man show at the Westport Museum for History and Culture, and he even had a bit part in the film Revolutionary Road. Julia is an award-winning writer of novels and memoirs, poetry, scripts for film and TV, and print and online articles. She holds degrees from the University of Rochester, Eastman School of Music, and NYU's graduate film program. She says that thanks to her English professor father and British mother, she's been crafting stories with a cup of tea since the age of 5. And today's moderator is Carol Dannhauser, who is a journalist and editor who has written for national publications, produced documentaries, and has been recognized by the White House for her online magazine work. She is the author of 4 nonfiction books and has been nominated for 3 Emmys. Carol was also selected as a master teaching artist by the Connecticut Commission on the Arts and co-founded the Writers' Workshop of Fairfield. So without further ado, welcome to you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, without further ado, I guess we go now, huh? Nice to meet you both. I feel like I already know you, Mike, because of your book. Here, look at this. You like that?
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
There we go. That's Mike's book, the big one. So I feel like I know you already, which happens in a memoir, right? That's the idea, is you get to know, hopefully anyway, a little bit about who the person is now based on this transformational event that they had when they were younger. Julia, I was imagining your hand in this, and I'm really curious to know today, in addition to the story, how this book came about, how your collaboration came about. So before we started chatting with Jennifer, Mike was about to say that he'd been working on the story for 40 years. And I got that sense when I picked the book up.
Yeah.
So I asked him to save it. Thanks, Mike, for saving it. And to start now, because that helps us understand how the book came to be. So 40 years. So you've been working on, when did the story happen?
Well, the story started when I was a senior in high school.
So you were what, 18 or whatever?
I was 17. I was a grade ahead of myself because I was advanced learner when I first started school. I skipped kindergarten. It's right in the first grade, the high pressure first grade, 5-year-old in first grade. But I overcame, and I was 17, a senior in high school, and it's my senior year, and I figured I really studied hard my sophomore and junior year, so I got all my courses all put together, and all my classes. I only had to take the required class like economics, English, and gym.
Right.
And,
so before we get to the story, this was how many years ago? So how many years ago was this?
1974.
Okay. And so for 40 years, you've been working on the story, which gets us to 1980, right?
Yes.
So 6 years, of course, is our story, which we're going to absolutely talk about.
Yes.
So how do we get from 40 years of writing a story, having lived and survived the big moment, which is important in every memoir, right? I was going about my business of life when this thing happened that changed everything.
Yes.
In 6 years, you're living it and starting maybe to put it into perspective. And 40 years, this story is building in you. Why? How does it come out 40 years later? How did that happen in your working of writing the story for 40 years? Were you writing it in your head? Were you writing journals? Were you just trying to recapture what happened when you didn't quite know what was going on? How did you do that when you say you've been writing it for 40 years? What does that mean?
Well, it all started when I put a book, self-published book called Why Me, Why Now. It was 36 pages. And just me recalling the day of the accident, my coma, what I saw in the coma, and my recovery. And just, I called Why Me, Why Now? And I wanted to take it further. And I even spoke at the library on my book, Why Me, Why Now? Oh, this has got to be at least, 10 years ago.
So to get to that, the first version, let's say, version one of the big one. Yeah. So you just sat down one day and wrote the 36 pages, or what did you do?
It just flowed out of me. Like, I just remember, yes, and then this, and this. It was like, I had one knock on my head from the accident, because like, it was a traumatic. I shouldn't be here. Of course, it was so bad. Yeah. And things just click. And I remember things like, it's funny, because like, when we're with Julia, when she says something, I go, yeah, that happened also. And then, yeah. And it opened the door. So I had so many stories in my mind, instead of finding a way to get them on paper and get them put out there. And so
you write your 36-page version one, essentially, and you talk about it, and you think about it, and how does that turn into, this is pretty short, right? What is this, maybe 30,000, 25? How long is this? Do you know how many?
It's like, how many chapters?
Chapters, let me see. We have,
Not even, maybe.
It's
24 chapters.
In an epilogue.
Yeah, just wondering how many words about this is. Did you do a word count? Just curious.
I don't recall the word count.
Yeah, it's pretty short.
It's sort of almost like a novella.
Yeah.
And it has photographs at the end too.
Yeah. I did read it. Unlike a lot of interviewers, I always read the book. So how did you get from that version to this version? My guess is Julia enters the scene somehow.
Yeah. I talked to a friend of mine, and I wanted to put this in and make a movie, get a screenplay written. And then a friend of my sister's recommended Julia. He said, give Julia a call, and I give Julia a write to her and just ask her if she has some free time now. So I did that. We got together and we first wrote the screenplay. And that took us,
That took about 6 months.
6 months. And we got it done.
See how the story would lend itself to being a screenplay.
Yeah, we began as a screenplay.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
Right.
And then as we got screenplay, she goes, to get a screenplay pushed, you gotta have a book behind it.
Also, I felt that it would expand the story more, because a screenplay is almost like a haiku in a sense, when it compared to a real narrative, where in a book you can go into all the backstory, and there was so much wealth in the backstory.
Yeah, and I'm glad we did, because with her, as I do that, I found a lot of stuff out they never told me.
Yes, we had to do some digging, and so we both learned things.
Yeah, I bet it, because it seemed that your memory was remarkable. But there were so many elements of your personal story, Mike, that are remarkable. And one of them, to me, was I don't think I've ever read or heard anybody. I've never read of or heard from anybody talk about what they were thinking of during the coma. That really struck me. I thought that was so powerful. Will you share now what your story was about, and that element in particular? I mean, of course, it's many thousands of words, but so just in a nutshell, if you had a couple of lines to share what your story was about, what would you say? What would you
tell us? It was showing about how I was riding on top of the world, had everything, my baseball, my job, and my schooling. I was fit to be. I was riding high. I was on top of the game, and then had it all swept away from me in a matter of moments. Because I was walking in people's shadows. I got lost in those shadows and almost lost my life. And I just emphasize that. I want to see people get to reading this book. Don't walk in people's shadows. Shine your own light. Become your own. Don't become like a leader. You're all TV leader and, you know, storm the troops. No, be yourself. You know, shine in your own light. If people want to, and people will come. I've made a lot of friends just being myself and just going after what I wanted, follow my dreams. As I believe this is strong. I believe this. Oh, I can't find the word, but I'm very strong. I believe on this. Follow your dreams because they do come true. And with me, they did.
So it's interesting to hear you saying this one at the beginning of the story, not unlike many people in Westport, right? You did a really nice job of talking about being on the sidelines in a town like Westport, where you didn't necessarily fit in with the cool kids for a period of time anyway, right? You had this. I loved your parents and your sister. Oh my gosh. I thought they were just so wonderful.
They're the team Krysiuk and I wouldn't be here without this team Krysiuk.
Yeah, so there's team Krysiuk, right? And you're like such a good kid. You just know, thanks to, your collaborations together, comes across what a good kid you are. And then all of a sudden, you get really cool because you're a good baseball player with that I love the pivotal moment.
Guy on your shoulder. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. The guy on your shoulder.
I dare you.
Well, did you feel like it was an I dare you, or come on, what do you have to lose? Because at the beginning you were truly pining to be one of the cool kids with the girlfriends and the, living the cool life. And then for this brief moment, you got it. It seemed like a brief moment. Was it longer than a brief moment? It would seem like for a brief moment you got it. And then
what do you mean by that?
Well, once I'm sorry, go ahead, Julia.
I think it was maybe just really a semester that he was really in that glory.
Yeah. So that's the brief moment to me when you had the amazing baseball experience. I'm a big baseball fan, so that must have been just so cool.
The clouds parted. Yes.
Yeah. Here's my card. The Met Scout. And then you have nice parents and the Mets guy and the cool kids, and all of a sudden I shouldn't get all excited that I'm moving my monitor. All of a sudden you're a cool kid, and things change, and I can see where you must have felt the dueling. Angel and devil, not really, but your better sense, the way you'd been trained and raised, and over here going, come on, man, come on, a little bit of glory. Are we talking about what happened in the book? Is that something we're going to talk about here? The incident.
Sure.
I think it's
important.
Me too. You want to tell us, when I say you, either one of you, it doesn't matter. Tell us what happened that really was the pivotal moment in the book on which this is the story on which this is based. What's the incident that happens that changed everything?
When I was in a coma. I'm this
before the coma. So
I think like the inciting incident really would be that Mike really wanted to get in with this kid that had a James Dean quality, where he had a charisma that was almost mesmerizing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that he was the most handsome or this or that. It was just, some people have that quality that's almost intangible. And he had his own posse. It was almost like they were untouchable, that they could get away with anything. They could go and have breakfast instead of going to their morning classes, and be cool at the diner together like their own clique, and they could cut when they wanted to and still somehow manage to get by. They were all jocks, and each one had their own sort of style that the girls liked. And he wanted to get in with them. And so he started to once he had some favor with them, he started to cut the classes in the morning. This is a really great student that, you know, always crossed his T's and dotted his I's. And he thought, he always would tell me, he'd be like, well, I mean, how much could it really hurt? I've done so well. I'm in my last semester. I mean, I'm just going to go to breakfast with them, or maybe shoot some hoops instead of, you know, doing my class.
So what happens? What happens that, tell me in your own words, Mike, what happened that you remember anyway, leading up to it? Because you do such a nice job of it in the book.
Well, I was, I wanted to be cool, one of the cool guys. Like, it was like, they would always seem to, anything would happen. They'd skip a class and they'd come in, and the teacher would even see him and say, "Oh, how you doing?" You know.
So we get to that, and then get me in the car. Get me, I'm looking at our time and I can't believe how it's flying by. Get us in the car.
Well, they invited him to go get some drinks to celebrate a great moment.
They're trying to, you know, come on. I don't know. I finished, I got to hand this paper in the next day or else I flunk and I won't be able to graduate or play or anything. And play ball or anything. And this guy, the teacher, he was a real stickler. If you didn't, he would, he would flunk you at a drop of a dime. And I figured, oh no. And I got all the stuff from my parents. I got their confidence back by showing I did the work in school. Because of, oh, come on. We'll be home in half an hour. I'll take my car. We'll leave your car here. We'll take my car. I'll get up and come back quick. So I said, I have a friend who called me Lecraze because I did crazy things like that. Be part of the gang guy. You got Lecraze to do it. He'll do it. And, no. And so I said, okay, we'll go. So we head up there, head up to Vista. We buy the beer. And then I didn't have anything to drink because I didn't want to have any smell in my breath when I got back to my parents. I said, wait, no, I'll ride you with Ted. But then Ted just said, oh, let's go. We got to get you home. He peeled out of the parking lot. And he was heading down the road. And like the song said, the telephone poles looked like a picket fence. I used choice language to tell him to slow the car down. He hits the gears lock, the brakes lock. Skidded across the street, heading for a big pile of dirt and a big black shadow. I just put my legs on it, out of reaction, put my legs on the dashboard to brace myself. Because I had nothing to hold on to on the passenger side. We hit the pile of dirt, flipped into the black shadow. Black shadow was a bulldozer, a backhoe. They don't move. When we hit the plow, the hinge on the door, for the headlight on the driver's side, through the hinge on the door, was all pushed in. I was lucky I put my legs on the dashboard. When the doctor said I would have lost both legs at the sockets because the engine hit the bottom of my seat. So
what was that like for the two of you to put that on the page together? How that must have been such a tough, difficult. Where were you? Were you in Julia's house like you are now? Like, how did you do this separately? How
we always sat together, whether it was in the library or at the house.
Yeah, you could sort of see that it was a collaborative effort. It was really, I appreciated, Julia, how the voice was consistent throughout, how it seemed like Mike's voice throughout.
The funny thing about it though, is that I would say something and I had so many ideas in my head, so much information in my head, I might have forgot something, but she'd say something, oh yeah, and this, she goes, why didn't you, she always say, why didn't you tell me that in the beginning?
You say like a great scene or something really amazing, and then I go back in. That's kind of why I crossed over to the book as well, is because I knew if I went and I did the book, then I could revisit the script and the more, because the way memory works, and you do something traumatic, it comes back in layers. And so that way I could go deeper. And then when I go to edit the script, I could draw things in from the book and make it more vibrant.
Yeah, also, when the person is living it, in the middle of this trauma and everything else is frozen because you're just trying to survive, you might not necessarily understand that you remember these different aspects of the story without somebody asking you, what was that like, or what did that feel like, or what did that sound like, or what else did you feel? I could feel you bracing your knees up against that dashboard. I appreciated that. So the two of you would meet for how long? How long a period of time did this last for you to write this book?
Another 6 months, I would say. So 6 for the script, at least 6 or more for maybe almost a year for the book, because the book goes through different things.
It dug a lot deeper.
And one of you, you both would chat, and then like logistically, how did it work? Did you?
So I would sit there and I had a, kind of what you're doing right now. I would say, let's go back to the beginning. What started this? What was going on in your life at that time? What were the stakes for you? What would happen if you hung out with this group? What would happen if you go and have these beers and get in an accident? He was pretty much about to get back on track with school.
Yeah.
And this accident happened at the absolute worst moment, derailing everything that he'd worked for to get back into the good graces of his school, his parents, and follow his dreams. And so the book's really about what happens when you're about to enter into what you're meant to do with your life, and something comes in and derails you tremendously. How do you fight your way back to your purpose?
I found it fascinating that the book really did not dwell in any way on the dark side. And this was a life or death experience, close to death experience. Was that a deliberate decision that you two made together, that we're going to focus on the positive? We're going to talk about how you get out of that kind of thing?
Yes.
In PT, you mentioned it a little bit, but I'm imagining what torture that must have been for you to pull yourself out of that situation. And
Yes.
I guess you're not a negative guy.
Not at all.
I don't know.
Positive person.
Yeah, but the book was just very, very optimistic and spiritual and positive, and I thought that was remarkable, actually.
Yes, I don't want to dawn on the dark side of it, because my sister, my mom, my dad, and my sister never wanted me to hear any negativity when I was recovering. Because I was really bad off. I was. You could have folded me up and put me in a basket and carried me home. I was that bad. It's like they wanted just to keep me on the positive side and keep seeing, like I live by this now. As I saw in the crossroads in the coma, I was told, it says, Mike, do not walk in people's shadows. Walk in your own light. Follow the sun. Shoot for the sun in everything you do. Because even if you miss, you'll land among the stars, and that is a great place to be. And that's what I do in everything now. I just don't see any negativity. It's got to be positive.
It seems, I can't believe 25 minutes have passed, but they have. So I'm supposed to be the time sheriff. What a nice place to end. To really, it seemed like you were making a decision, and still make a decision each day to make it a light day.
Yes.
Instead of a dark day, when you certainly had the opportunity to make it a dark day. So I found that was very inspiring, and I admire the work that you did together. So here's one more plug. See, you're not doing it, I am. I'll plug your book for you.
Thank you.
By Mike Krysiuk, did I say that right?
Yes.
Julia Bobkoff. And Julia, so is your screenplay done?
Yes, my screenplay is done. And I have to say, this has been the most amazing experience working with Mike. As you can see, he's super positive. You can't even sit down to write with him and if you're like having a bad day, your mood will change in 5 seconds.
Yeah, I could see that. So you write with tea, and Julia, Jennifer says something about a glass of wine. I think I'm going to get a cup of coffee, because we're doing this in the morning. I hear it all times. But thank you so much. Thank you for
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
And thank you, Jennifer, for inviting me to do this. It was delightful.
Thank you all. On behalf of the Westport Library, this has been a wonderful interview with you, Mike, Carol, and Julia. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. Remember, for those of you at home, you can order the big one online or borrow it from the Westport Library. You definitely need to read it before it comes out in a film. So for more author videos and events and information about the Westport Library, please visit westportlibrary.org. Thank you all again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.